In this video, I'll be setting up a Synology NAS as a Tailscale Subnet Router. If you aren't familiar with Tailscale, it's a VPN service that coordinates WireGuard connections between nodes, creating a secure mesh network, and I cover Tailscale in detail in my video on accessing a Synology NAS through Tailscale, which I'll link to in the description below. I also used that video as a starting point for this video, so make sure to check it out if you need to get Tailscale set up on your Synology NAS. For some background, Tailscale works best when installed directly on each node, which provides a zero configuration, direct, and encrypted end-to-end connection between the nodes. In some situations, however, you won't be able to install Tailscale directly on a node, but still want access to the node or device, for example a network printer, IP camera, or Wi-Fi router. This is where subnet routers come in. With a subnet router, you enable a Tailscale node to act as a gateway, relaying traffic from your Tailscale network onto the physical network that the subnet router advertises. For this video, I'll be setting up a Synology NAS as a Tailscale subnet router, allowing other Tailscale nodes to gain access to the subnet that the Synology NAS is on, enabling access to devices on that network. For further information on subnet routers through Tailscale, I'll leave a link to Tailscale's knowledge base article covering subnet routers in the description below. My current Tailscale setup consists of 3 nodes, but my focus will be on 2 of them. These would be my DS920 Plus Synology NAS that I'll be setting up as the Tailscale subnet router, and my MacBook, which I'll be using to test the setup changes as I progress through the video. To show you what is accessible in my current Tailscale setup, I'm connected to my iPhone personal hotspot, so my MacBook isn't on the same network as my DS920 Plus. And if I copy the Tailscale IP address for my DS920 Plus and paste it into a web browser, I'm able to connect to the DSM login screen just fine, which indicates that the Tailscale connection is working. However, I'm not able to connect to my Ubiquiti Edge Router X, which is the router on the LAN that the DS920 Plus is on, and should be accessible at 192.168.81.1. After the subnet router is configured, I should be able to access the Ubiquiti Edge Router X along with other devices on the LAN, and I'll test accessibility once again after everything is set up. To configure a Synology NAS as a Tailscale subnet router, we'll need to use the command line. So I've enabled SSH from the terminal and SNMP control panel within DSM on my DS920 Plus. I've also changed the SSH port to a custom port number as well. To learn more about setting up SSH on a Synology NAS, check out my SSH video, which I'll link to in the description below. Next, I'll SSH into the Synology NAS and run this command to add the subnet that my DS920 Plus will advertise through Tailscale. Make sure to enter in the subnet that you'd like to use in your setup. After running the command, I'll bring up the Tailscale admin console, make sure I'm on the Machines window, then select the option Edit Route Settings from the menu for my DS920 Plus. From this window, I see the new subnet route that was just entered, and I'll need to toggle on the switch to enable it. Now, the DS920 Plus should be routing the subnet, and I should be able to connect to devices on the network, specifically the Ubiquiti Edge Router X, and I'll test connectivity from my MacBook next. I'm once again connected to my iPhone personal hotspot here on my MacBook to make sure I'm not on the same network as my DS920 Plus. And I've disabled Tailscale on my MacBook for now to leave it at the point where we were prior to the subnet router being set up. Here, the Ubiquiti Edge Router X web interface wasn't accessible, and I eventually got this error message letting me know that the web page couldn't be opened. Next, I'll enable Tailscale with the subnet router set up, and the Ubiquiti Edge Router X web interface now loads up fine. One additional item I'd like to note is that Tailscale recommends disabling the Key Expiry setting for nodes that are set up as subnet routers. This is done from the Tailscale admin console from the Machines window, then From the menu associated with the subnet router, I'll select Disable Key Expiry. I'll leave a link in the description below to Tailscale's knowledge base article on Key Expiry if you'd like to read more about it. The final topic I'd like to cover is removing a subnet router and its advertised routes if you would like to reset a Tailscale node back to its default state. This requires the command line once again, so I'll SSH into the DS920 Plus and run this command, which resets the node back to default if no other options are entered. Next, I'll bring up the Tailscale admin console and from the Machines window, select Edit Route Settings from the menu for the DS920 Plus, and now we see that the subnet route is no longer advertised, and I'm able to completely remove the entry by clicking on the Remove button. I hope this video on Tailscale Subnet Routers provides you with some ideas on expanding your Tailscale setup, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if it did. Also consider subscribing to this channel and make sure to check out some of my other videos listed here on screen. Lastly, consider supporting my work by checking out the Support This Channel section in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.